Hey guys, so earlier this week I saw a video done by Cycling Weekly on YouTube where they took the UCI's power test and took it and saw how they did. I thought it would be a cool idea to see if I could do it as well. So the idea behind the power test is I think altogether it's about 25 minutes long. So you start with a 17-minute warm-up and then it moves into two 6-second maximum power tests. You just go all out for these 6 seconds twice with a little bit of rest in between, then you rest again. And then after those two 6-second tests, you have a 30-second block test. And then after another rest, you have a 4-minute threshold test. So I thought it would be cool to see how I stack up against not only the UCI's kind of statistics chart, but how the riders and guys over at the Cycling Weekly video did. Like I stated before, the first part of the workout is a 17-minute warm-up. You'll start with 7 minutes at 90 RPM, and then 1.5 minutes at 100 RPM, and then you'll kind of move up at 1-minute intervals all the way up to 110 RPM where you come back down, and you'll end with 4 minutes of 90 RPM. After you finish the warm-up, you'll move on to the two 6-second peak power tests. This is just 6 seconds maximum effort, as hard as you can go, and then you get about 4 minutes of recovery. For my first peak 6 seconds, I hit 12:05, which was pretty good. My second 6 power was a little bit lower at 11:97. These numbers are pretty decent. They're not amazing for me, but they're kind of on par for where I should be right now. After those two 6-second efforts, you move on to your 30-second sprint test. This one's a little bit harder because you start out really strong, but you want to try and maintain that power throughout the whole thing. I was able to hit 8:35 for this. Again, not amazing number, but still pretty decent. It's always kind of been my goal to hit 1,000 watts for 30 seconds, and I've gotten pretty close during race season, but I wouldn't expect to do that right now. After about 4 minutes of recovery, you'll move on to the last part of the test, which is the 4-minute effort. This is probably the hardest part of the test for me just because it's so kind of hard for me to figure out where I want it to be. I had a number in my head which was about 420 watts, which I've done previously this year for about 5 minutes. So I figured I could get pretty close to that. And I was able to. For the 4 minutes, I was able to hit 415 watts. It was a pretty hard effort, and I'm pretty spent by the time I'm done here. If we look at the chart that Cycling Weekly provided in their video, and we look at the watts per kilo, right now I'm at about 85 kilos, planning to get down to 80 kilos by the end of the winter here. But we'll just go with 85 for right now. That's what I weighed yesterday morning. So if we go with that, for the 6-second peak test, I measured in at 14.1, which is on the lower end of the high watts per kilo, but not so much that it's blowing anybody out of the water. Definitely not in the development or the elite category. If we look at the 30-second effort, I managed to hit 9.8 watts per kilo, which is pretty dead center in the high bit of that watts per kilo. So pretty nice. If we look at the 4-minute effort though, I managed to put 4.8, which is dead center in the middle of the normal area, maybe towards the higher end, but nothing crazy. This is pretty much what I expected. My numbers are where they should be for a winter test. I don't really know when their video was filmed, but if we take a look at Paul, the guy in the video's results, we can kind of compare them to mine. So he's 26. I'll be 32 this year in October. He weighs 72 kilos. I'm right now at, again, 85 kilos. He is 1.75 meters tall, and this one I actually had to look up. I'm 1.8 meters tall, 6 foot. Now, I'm not quite sure what they use to measure BMI. I'm going to go ahead and assume since they were at a testing site, they probably did a more controlled test with measurements. I don't have that, so I just went to Google and kind of figured out what my BMI would be, and it actually ended up being kind of depressing because right now it says my BMI is 25.4, so we'll go with that. Don't know if it's right, but we'll use it. So for that 6-second effort, the peak power that I put out was just over 1,300. The average, though, was that 1205. So my peak power watt per kilo would be right about 15.3. So the average power, again, was 1205, which means the average power watts per kilo would be about 14.1. And the peak cadence that I put out was 173 RPM. My 30-second power, the peak was 111 watts. That puts me at 13 watts per kilo. The average power through the whole effort was again 835, which puts me at a watt per kilo of 9.8. And then my 4-minute effort was 415 watts, which puts me at an average power watt per kilo of 4.8. So overall, it does look like I beat out Paul in pretty much all of the categories, but I don't know how much Paul rides or races. In the video, he does say he fancies himself a decently quick rider. I'm pretty happy with my results overall, but if you look at the average that they included on that chart as well, it looks like I get beat pretty handedly, and my results are below what they would be looking for, which is to be expected. I hope you guys really enjoyed this video. If you like this, go ahead and try it out for yourself and let me know what your results are down below.